Here we are yet again for another sales confidence podcast. And I am always excited about our guests, but in particular, Lauren Wright, who is the VP of Sales at Demodesk, is joining us today. Hey, Lauren, how are you getting on?
I'm great.
Well,
Great to
that's
be
great.
here.
Well, that's excellent. Not only that, she's just delivered another 7-minute talk. So if you haven't seen it, you can get over to YouTube and see not only one, but two 7-minute talks from Lauren. So she's getting down and starting to nail the importance of impactful and actionable insights in a short period of time. So I know today we're going to be able to get some insights from Lauren that you'll be able to implement or learn from as part of this podcast. So just kicking off today, Lauren, I know you're over in Portugal. How long have you been over there?
Yeah, so I've been here about a week. I took the ferry down from the UK, so I went from Portsmouth to Santander, and then drove the car across the border from Spain to Portugal. It was great.
Oh, that's amazing. And how long are you intending to spend over there?
I'm down here a few weeks, actually. I'm visiting a property that we're looking at, and then also maybe doing some interviewing because we actually are looking at making a sales hub down here too.
Oh, that is very cool. Wow. So you heard that here first. Potential opportunities to work by the beach in Portugal. Very exciting. We've also had Veronica, your CEO and co-founder, on the podcast. So this will be another great opportunity to get a little bit closer to the sales organization and learn about your story, but also your philosophies. Before we go into Demodesk, the organization, I'd love to know just a little bit more about you, Lauren. First question I like to ask is, what's the first thing that you think about when you wake up in the morning?
Yeah, good question. Well, the very first thing I think about or even like look at when I wake up in the morning is my daughter. So if this is caveat, if she hasn't woken me up first. I either look at the little cam in her room or go down and see her. But she's my motivation to go out and do great things every day.
I love that. That's fantastic. I've got 3 children, so I know what you mean by getting woken up at odd
Bless you.
times. So you've already mentioned there kind of a daughter in your life that gives you motivation, but broadly, where does that inspiration and motivation come from to be an effective sales leader that you are in today's market?
Yeah, good question. I mean, in the first instance, I'm motivated and inspired by the people around me, doing great things and coming up with great ideas, and that's always been a really important thing for me in looking at any organization or what are the people like in that organization, and it from top to bottom, and that at Demodesk we have interns who are so talented and creative and eager to learn. And that really gives me motivation of, one, what I can learn from them, and two, what they can accomplish in their own lives through both at Demodesk and beyond. So that's one. I mean, in terms of a greater force of inspiration that has guided me, and I've always been a fan of sport, and there are a few sports celebrities that really have inspired me, and one of those is Serena Williams. I love tennis. I play tennis. And I think a lot of the effort that goes into playing sport and being a champion, both on and off the field, and also, most importantly, dealing with loss, are very relatable to our sales practice.
Yeah, I totally agree. And she's a worthy champion and also a good example of the sheer dedication that is required to reach the top of your game. And that's something no doubt we'll talk about as we go through this interview today. Your career, when did you first get a taste of sales, or when was your first experience of a sales interaction, maybe earlier on in life or your career?
Yeah, yeah, good question. Early, I would say. I mean, I always was, as soon as I could work and became of working age, I started to work. But I would say the most sort of inspiring experience I had in sales was when I came home from university, I worked at sort of a fancy department store called Nordstrom in the US, which is kind of like John Lewis here in the UK. And yeah, I had a fair bit of student loans while I was in uni. So my friends might have been off to like Florida for spring break or Cabo, and I was off to work for like a 2 week period over the Easter break. On the I say that not as a sad story, but I actually loved it. I loved like as soon as the plane hit the ground, I was like, okay, I can work tomorrow morning. And off I came. I was on the sales floor, and there are a few things specifically about that company that, and it was a private company. It's publicly traded now, but it was a private company then that really sort of made me think about sales in a different way. And one was they had a training that everyone did, and they showed you an org chart. And on the top of the org chart, they had their customers. And then the next down on the chain was actually me, the salesperson on the sales floor. And then beyond that, and then it went all the way down to the CEO, John W. Nordstrom, who was on the very bottom of the org chart. And they just flipped it on its head and said, look, you're the most important person in this company. And it really inspired me, like, yeah, this is true. And without our customers and without you, we're a failing business. So that was one thing. They also had an incredible sales process. And look, I was selling women's shoes. So this is like can get pretty, what do you say, less glamorous than perhaps other departments within the fancy the fancy department store. And so I was dealing with feet every day. But they had a certain philosophy, which was you always brought out what they call 4 pieces of wood, which wood was just a box of shoes. Even if they asked for 1, you always brought 4. And you always had to do a certain number of hours restocking. So you really understood, what was in the warehouse, what was in the back. And so you started to get creative and think about, in today's world, I'm translating that to like deal structures and figuring out, okay, what does this customer really need? They came to me with this shoe, they want to try it on, but what do they really need? So going back, and it kind of got you, instead of just doing your job from A to B, got you thinking about, okay, what does this customer want? What are they like? What did I learned from them the 2 seconds that I had this interaction, and what am I going to bring them? And so you started asking questions about before you actually went out to get that shoe for them. And so that was like another thing that just kind of changed my thinking around sales. And then finally, customer experience. So a little thing about this department store is that they walk the bag around the counter. So that was just a huge difference. In a little thing that made a huge difference. So now today, like anybody hands a bag over the counter to me, it just feels really awful because I've had this experience that felt like a relationship. Like someone was actually walking a bag around the counter after the transaction. I wasn't there, behind the till where it felt like a trading wall. It was really the two of us working together, and it was a great experience.
I love that. And you've used the word experience a few times, creating those moments that are clearly memorable because they've stayed with you to this point in your life is such an important reminder. Selling shoes, quite different to selling software though.
It is. And I have to say, like, I'm not really a shoe person after that whole experience. I'm here I am in Portugal. I just want a pair of flip-flops and be on my way.
Awesome. That's awesome. So you've had you had a rapid rise in moving from earlier in your career to leadership, and I just wondered about those transitions from sales management to sales VP, possibly kind of your trajectory in your career. What do you think made you successful in those transitions and reaching greater heights as you succeeded and led more and more people?
Yeah, I think there were a series of sort of mindset changes over the course of my career that helped me sort of reframe my thinking about my career. And, I think this first stage of my career was like survival. It was just like early career. I had come out of university with student loans. I felt like I was living, paycheck to paycheck, and it was about making money and paying the bills. And that was what a job meant to me. It was like, how do I survive? And I actually remember bringing a sandwich bag full of coins into a bank and feeling like I won the lottery when it spit out $75. It was like, oh my God, I lived in New York. It was like high rent, so I worked hard and I paid off my loans. I remember my first bonus, it paid off my loans and learned a lot about financial responsibility and managing stress. And so that period of time, I became very stressed about my own finances and making sure I could pay the bills. And I discovered that you didn't really need to have a load of money to have a good time and be happy. And so little things changes I made in my own sort of personal life, like I quit a gym and joined a running club. All you need are a pair of running shoes and off you go. And I met a social group through that, and that really kind of gave me energy and thrived. So I think that just kind of changed my lens on what's important in life, and helped me learn a lot about financial responsibility and how to manage that and manage the stress in my life that was coming from it.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that was stage one, and I'll speed it up here. But stage two is really finding purpose with work. And that's really where I found Glassdoor, and that was my previous role to Demodesk, and it was kind of after this grind of being in the financial world, and actually after the financial crisis, during which I lost my job actually to the financial crisis, and it was a really kind of pinnacle point in my career where I really wanted to get behind something that I believed in. And I found this little website sort of serendipitously. And I loved the concept of workplace transparency and being able to work somewhere where you actually loved your job and it motivated you every day. So that was one area where I joined a company and I was interviewing at pretty established shiny financial institutions like Guggenheim. And then the next day, all of a sudden, my family and my friends were thinking, are you joining a company that makes glass doors? I'm really confused. And I was like, no, this is an amazing website. And so everyone thought I was a bit crazy, but it was really, a decision that I felt in my gut that it was the right decision for me, and I went for it. And it totally changed my career trajectory. And through that role, I also started as a sales rep, and then I was there very early, and so I was able to impact a lot of things, from our sales motion to how we positioned the product. What we went through a period where we started doing a freemium model, and then we started really refining our enterprise sales motion, and eventually I moved over to Europe and led our international and started our international sales teams in London, and had a huge sort of startup within a startup experience in Europe.
I'm loving listening to the journey, because even though we've had quite a number of interactions, you're sharing some anecdotes that I hadn't heard before, and I think this is you're a great example for people to listen into, to get in early into an organization. And that would probably highlight nicely why you've then joined an organization like Demodesk at its early stages again. And maybe we could learn a bit more about Demodesk for the listeners that have never heard of Demodesk. I mean, what did Demodesk do? What is the proposition? What's the value prop for Demodesk in the market?
Yeah. So very simply, we empower every rep to become a top performer. And we do that by guiding sellers in real time. So real-time sales enablement, automating all of the admin and non-selling tasks that eat up your day, and engaging customers in the meeting, and analyzing insights at scale, and coaching at scale. So that is Demodesk. And if you look what it is, it's a customer meeting platform. So it's made for customer meetings and customer interactions.
So I know there's already a lot of people joining. We already have heard that you are potentially opening up a spot in Portugal. for those people listening that are like, oh, this could be a place for me to work, and maybe they've already checked your Glassdoor score, but they're now listening to the podcast. What's the fundamental DNA of Demodesk that attracted you there and that makes it a special place to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think I alluded to this earlier that people inspire me, and so that's a really important element of where I choose to work is what the people are like. And if I were to narrow it down to three things at Demodesk, when I think about the DNA of people, one would be growth, one would be ownership, and one would be team. And those three words, I think, really embody everyone at Demodesk. And they're actually some of our values. We have more values than that, and I think they're all sort of intertwined in some way. But I think that if you're going to describe a Demodesker today, then there's a sense of unqualified ownership across the team. And I found out the hard way in some cases that is such an important trait that when something falls through the cracks, and inevitably, on a roller coaster ride of a startup, every week there's something that doesn't go the right way or differently than you think, and you have to figure out a solution together. And if you start kind of saying like, oh, that's your territory or that's my territory or what have you, then it just doesn't work very well. So everyone plays their parts and has a sense of like, I own this together with you. And that really, moves the ball forward. And then on the growth side, there's sort of an insatiable thirst within the organization for learning and being curious and figuring out, across all levels, from the CEO all the way, to interns, that outputs of that sort of like thirst for growth will make it an amazing place to work every day, because we see that progress, which as I mentioned before, like really inspires me, is like just moving the ball forward. And then finally, we have a lot of people from a ton of different backgrounds. So like just thinking about our revenue team, we've got people from all over the map. I mean, China, India, grew up in Finland, Colombia. I mean, those are just some of the people that make up our at this point, a pretty small sales team, but we have a really, wide range of backgrounds. And I think that really enriches the team to have such diversity and of perspective and interesting stories to share.
I love that. Demodesk is really bringing out and pushing the brand and pushing the technology experience for sales reps. It's teaching us that we shouldn't accept as sales reps and sales leaders a poor experience in our day-to-day. I just wonder, what's the ambition for Demodesk? Maybe not just in the UK and Europe, but globally. What type of sales organization or what type of business do you hope to build over the coming years, Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, that's very much aligned to our mission, which is to help everyone everywhere have great customer conversations. So what does that mean for sales teams? It means that reps and sales teams and sales reps, that they ramp faster in their organization, that they're increasing their sales velocity by having the support they need at their fingertips in the meeting, by saving time, by eliminating all that admin work that once sort of haunted us in our everyday, and sort of it can be. I mentioned this in our in a talk, your 7-minute talk recently, but it can be like very demoralizing when you have so much admin to do, and you get your motivation by doing customer facing meetings. But on a more emotional level, I think what that means for the people that we're helping, which are sales reps, every day be better at their roles. It means doing that despite the circumstances that might be happening in their lives. Like maybe they're coming back from maternity leave and a lot's happened in a fast growing sales organization. So they almost have to, I mean, I've done this myself, right? So I've come back from maternity leave myself, and so much happened over the period that I was not in the organization, that ramping back up was also quite difficult. And at the rep level, you might have a whole new first meeting deck, or the brand is repositioned, or there's a new product. So Demodesk can help with that, despite the circumstances in your life, and let you live your life and also be really good at your role.
Thank you for sharing. So clearly, if anyone's listening right now, there's a huge opportunity to get involved with Demodesk. So make sure you head over to the website and check it out. Just more about sales and a bit more of your personal interests around where you see the future of sales. Before I ask that, though, I like to ask, because it's a takeaway that people like to get into. Is there a book or something that you've read recently that has had an impact on your career?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many sales books, right, that are so good. I think there's so many sales books that are so good to reread. Like I reread a lot of maybe like a chapter or two of just some of the great, Challenger Sale, or Spin Selling's another one. There's so many good kind of sales acumen books to help you, like remind you to do the fundamentals. But one of the books that I think really I took away with a lot of change for me as a leader was at at Glassdoor and previous role, a lot of the leadership team read Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Yeah.
And there are just so many gems to glean from that book. And it really helped me at times when I was struggling in the role a little bit, look in the mirror and take ownership of a mess I was in, and think about things through different paradigms. But I think the premise of the book is a really important one for us in sales, looking at companies that are good and those that are great. And I think that is so important for those of us that out there selling a solution every day and motivating buyers to go from good to great. And like some of the worst things we can always hear, and some of the best things you can hear in discovery, are the words of everything is good. Yeah, everything is good. Don't need to change anything.
I agree. It's a great book, great read. And it just alludes to me that thinking around what in your mind or your eyes makes a great salesperson. What do you look for from an attributes perspective, either joining Demodesk or just what you believe makes a great salesperson in the market?
Yeah, I have actually had the pleasure of working with a lot of sales reps from like what I would call like unorthodox backgrounds, like meaning that they didn't just work at some of the big names in sales or in SaaS, that came and had the right sort of ineffable characteristics that make a great sales rep. And what I mean by that is just there's a hunger to learn, a hunger to listen, a curiosity, a motivation, and an incredible perseverance. I hate to use the word grit because it's so sort of trendy, but it's true. The grit is so important to be able to have the resilience to press ahead. And really focus on outcomes and the things that matter. So that I think in encompassing all that is coachability, and so that is what I've seen. No matter what your background is, that makes you. It has the recipe for a great sales rep.
Yeah, awesome. One of the things I've enjoyed learning about you is that you've been very open and honest about challenges that you've overcome in your career and on your journey, and that talks to what we care about at Sales Confidence. We care about authenticity, we care about honesty, and we care help others unlock their confidence. And so I'd love to understand around confidence. Where do you find your confidence to persevere and achieve? Where does that come from in the way that you approach things?
Yeah, I think like one thing is I don't know. There's a lot of moments that I've gone through, self-doubt or hard times, and you've got to, figure out a way to find, to sort of take that little voice in your head that's saying like, you can't do it, or this isn't where you're supposed to be, or what are you doing in this role? And I think it's very human to have that voice. And I think everybody has it in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it manifests more than others, especially if you're going through hard times. And sometimes that happens in your personal and professional life when it's all coming together. And I think you've got to look at results and outcomes and find resolve. So like like how have I progressed? How have things moved forward? Look at outcomes and look for feedback from others, and don't dwell on the past. I also think there's an element of kind of being real with yourself about, okay, I'm not doing everything right, and that's okay. I'm not supposed to have all the answers, and I need to go out and find the answers from people around me, or from my leaders, or from the people that work with me or are in my org, and we can do them together. So I think especially at the leadership level, it's easy to feel alone.
Yeah. Is there a particular hardship that you've overcome where, on reflection, what you were able to do to overcome it put you in a stronger position as you kind of evolved your career or came back?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have two stories I can share. One is a sales rep, when I had a leader that just really didn't believe in me. And I think I don't mean to raise this as like the leader didn't believe in me and was wrong. It was probably because I was also being a bit difficult, and was very maybe prickly about a situation, and I was kind of on the other side of being super motivated and wanting to win is you can win at all costs. So I think I had a tough time, and that leader kind of put me into sort of a pigeonhole, and on a team that was sort of lower than my abilities at the time, and I felt like, wow, I'm getting pushed out. And instead of sort of moping around, which I'd say I probably did for about a day or so, I went out and was like, all right, I'm going to prove this guy wrong. And I went out and then worked. I came in earlier than everyone else. I just really found a way to kind of overcome this, and ended up selling the biggest deal in the company that the company had ever seen. And at the time, and I don't mean to my own glory here, but I think it was a really important lesson for me of okay, move forward and find a way to win. And for me, it was just I wanted the end of the day, I went into the guy's office to get a counter signature on the deal. He was totally shocked because I had completely sandbagged my commit, of course, which is not a best practice. But he was just over the moon. And it turned out it's not that he didn't believe in me. It's just that I wasn't acting in a way that he could believe in me. And he asked me what I wanted, anything I could have. And all I wanted to do was go to a conference with the rest of the sales team. That's all I wanted to do was belong. So and that's what I got. I got to go to a silly conference with everybody else on the sales team because I asked for it. So that was one thing that was sort of changing for me. And then on the leadership side, I think there was a point at which I was running so hard and running teams so hard when we were growing in Europe that I realized that the impact of my actions were different than the intent, and I had team members that felt like I wasn't being a good leader to them, and that was really hard for me. And I had to kind of really look in the mirror and think about, okay, how do I be a better leader to my people, and really listen to them and take feedback. And that has changed me. And thankfully for the feedback that they gave me, changed me as a leader.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing and being so open. Fantastic stories and examples of just how you can reflect and reframe an experience to motivate you to move forward. So that's excellent. And And that's nice for us we're coming to the end of the interview now, and others will be wondering how they can develop their own confidence from some of their examples. Do you have any tips or approaches that you recommend to your team members on how they can think about developing their confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I think one is being curious. You've really got to go out and be really curious about other practices and other ways of doing things besides your own. And when things aren't working, kind of knowing when to sort of take a step back and say, okay, I need to just like hit the restart button. And I think with the funny thing about confidence is that it actually it comes from letting your guard down a little bit and being sort of authentic and real. And so if you can find that authenticity and be very open to feedback, then I think you'll find that you'll end up getting the things you need to grow your own confidence.
Brilliant. We care about the well-being of our minds and the physical well-being, because I feel like you can't perform unless you're well. Just how do you look after yourself? Obviously, you've got a little one running, well, almost not quite running around, I don't think, but you've got activities.
She's running.
But she is. So how are you staying well, and how do you look after yourself from a mindset and a well-being perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other role that I have is I'm a mom, and I'm a partner to my partner, and so I think there's other roles in your life, and you have to make sure that you're blocking time for them. And there are certainly times where there are weeks that I feel like I haven't, and I need to just like block time in my calendar at the end of the day to be with my family and know when it's time to shut off, and also be honest with them when, hey, I have a really crazy week and I'm going to be working late on these days, and making sure I can let them know and let them be prepared. So that means also that I can share with my workplace that those are my values, and that I'm not going to be on all of the time, and share with my team that I'm not going to be on all of the time. And I think it's important to share your own personal values with your team, and where there are places that you just need to stop. And then other things that are just a little bit more every day is just exercise. And I play tennis, and obviously that was taken away from us, at least if you lived in the UK during lockdown. So finding other ways to even like go downstairs sometimes and do 20 jumping jacks. I'm not kidding. Just like needs to like help you like get circulation in your body. Like I definitely did that, and I felt like a complete fool, but it just helped. And then a little bit of self-awareness also comes into play when you just are kind of staring into your machine for so long that you have to just remember to step away and give yourself a reset.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely brilliant. I just had an image now of you jumping up and down and doing your star jumps. It's fantastic.
Definitely will not put that on film ever.
So this has been enlightening. I really enjoyed chatting to you, Lauren. You've got fantastic energy, and you are very open with what you're willing to share. Is there any final thoughts that you have that you would like to share before we wrap up today's conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I think there's so much importance in kind of letting your guard down and being vulnerable and being coachable, and finding ways to learn from your peers. I was recently on a chat with a lot of other sales leaders talking about, okay, how do we create peer learning in our own sales organizations, because it's such an important thing. And look, none of us, like if I listened back to this podcast, is probably, wouldn't be my favorite thing to do, because none of us like to listen to ourselves talk. If you do, like, that's a little weird. But that I think being like getting into the uncomfortable zone as much as you can will help you grow. So find ways every week to get uncomfortable, and you will grow and you will gain confidence.
Excellent. Lauren, that's a wonderful way to end. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Sales Confidence podcast. We will be talking again, lots more times and opportunities people can listen and hear from Lauren and Demodesk. And enjoy the time that you've got in Portugal with the family. It looks like and sounds like you're having fun.
Thanks, James. Brilliant as always. It was lots of fun. Really enjoyed it.